Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
Meta AI is the personal AI that's tailored to you, now with its very own app. It's built to get to know you, offering helpful answers and inspiration. Looking for something to add to your bucket list? Meta AI goes beyond traveling the world. It remembers you're a basketball fanatic and suggests you attend one of the playoff games. Just start typing or speaking to get the answers you need, wherever and whenever, because Meta AI is your personal AI. Download the Meta AI app, now available on the Apple App Store and Google Play.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams, so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
EVO. This series contains adult language and depictions of graphic violence. Listener discretion is advised. By 1943, the tide of the war was beginning to turn against the Nazis. The Eastern Front bled into a frozen graveyard. Allied forces were gathering strength. But even as the Reich's grip weakened, its obsession with myth only grew more frenzied. The quest for the Grail, once a fringe pursuit, became desperation, bordering on madness. And so, in one final gambit, they looked to the most forbidden frontier of all, Antarctica. Berlin was under siege from the sky. Streets ran red beneath falling ash. But within the reinforced halls of Wewelsburg, a council met in secret. The Grail had not revealed itself in Europe, nor in the East. Himmler, concerned by military failure, sanctioned one last mission. It would be called Base 211. The destination, Neuschwabenland, a frozen sector of Antarctica first explored by a Nazi expedition in 1938. But this time, they weren't bringing survey tools. They brought relics, bloodlines, and rituals. They didn't go to find the Grail. They went to awaken it. Welcome back to The Devil Within. You're listening to the conclusion of the Unholy quest. The German vessel Schwabenland cut silently through southern waters, bound for coordinates known only to High Command. Aboard were scientists, SS officers, and members of the Tula Society, a shadowy, esoteric order that believed Earth wasn't solid, but hollow. The hollow Earth theory, long dismissed by modern science, had become sacred doctrine among Nazi occultists. Beneath the Antarctic ice, they believed, lay vast caverns warmed by geothermal heat. Ancient tunnels, a refuge of a forgotten society. If the Grail was a key, perhaps the door it opened was under the world. Beneath the glacial expanse of Queen Maud Land, the Nazis constructed a hidden base, complete with generators, greenhouses, and a landing strip carved from solid ice. Reports later dismissed as Allied propaganda spoke of deep caverns filled with ancient symbols, walls that hummed, light without fire. According to post-war testimony, the base was designed for one purpose: spiritual conduction. A ritual site to amplify something buried below, something they believed the Grail could activate. Was it madness? Or had they found something? We may never know. Most records were destroyed. Most who went never returned. Half a world away, a captured artifact stirred new speculation. The Piri Reis map, a 16th century Ottoman chart discovered in Istanbul depicted Antarctica, centuries before it was discovered by Western explorers. Even stranger, it showed the continent completely free of ice. To Nazi esotericists, this was confirmation. Antarctica had once been inhabited. And where there were ancient civilizations, there might also be relics, vessels, the Grail itself. They scoured ancient cartography. They decoded star charts. They believed the Grail had passed not through monasteries, but through migrations, carried from Atlantis to Egypt, then buried beneath the southern pole. And in Antarctica, they thought they'd found its tomb. 4 years after the Nazi defeat, the United States launched one of the largest Antarctic military operations in history, Operation High Jump. Officially, it was for research, but many believe otherwise. Ships were equipped for combat. Planes combed the ice with strange urgency, and when several aircraft vanished, rumors bloomed like frostbite. Some survivors spoke of vertical light, others of impossibly smooth metal embedded in mountainsides, of tunnels no drill could penetrate, of technology that didn't belong to this world. Whether true or not, Operation High Jump ended abruptly. The fleet withdrew. Silence followed. The ice had swallowed its secrets once more. In the post-war haze, a pattern emerged. Nazi officers and Unholy researchers began appearing in Argentina, protected by sympathetic fascist networks. Among them were men who'd served at Wewelsburg, at Base 211, men who had stood on the Antarctic ice and returned changed. They never spoke of what they saw, but in rare, intercepted documents, one phrase appeared again and again. The chalice is sealed. What did it mean? Did they find the Grail only to lose it, or did they lock it away? In the most secure archives of the Vatican, deeper even than the Secretum Apostolicum, lies a folder marked Sangreal, non confirmatum. Inside are transcripts from Allied intelligence, intercepted Nazi documents, and a crude map of Antarctica marked with blood-red runes. The Church does not acknowledge it, but it preserves it. Why? Because faith is not the absence of knowledge. It's the respect of danger. By the spring of 1945, Berlin was a graveyard. The Reich lay in ruins. Hitler was dead, and the Allied troops sifted through the ash of history's most destructive regime. But amid the rubble, something was missing. The Grail, whatever it truly was, had not been found, neither in the vaults of Wewelsburg, in the mines of Austria, not among the thousands of artifacts hidden across the continent. Instead, in the war's final moments, it simply vanished, but not without a trace. As American troops closed in on Hitler's mountain retreat, they discovered crates marked with signs of the Unholy, symbols not found in any official records. Inside were manuscripts, star charts, bone relics, a hollowed replica of a chalice lined with hematite, and a journal, half burned, detailing transfer protocols for an unnamed object of non-material significance. Then a phrase repeated 3 times. The Holy Grail has been relocated. To where? No one knew. In a hidden tunnel beneath the Alps, U.S. intelligence discovered what would become known as the Marburg Cache, a trove of Unholy documents sealed in lead-lined canisters. Among them, blueprints for spiritual transmission chambers, a list of Nazi operatives located under Valkyrie 22, and an encrypted reference to a relic custody detachment. It was the last time the Grail was mentioned in any official Nazi communication. And then the silence began. After the war, dozens of high-ranking Nazi scientists were quietly absorbed into Western intelligence agencies under Operation Paperclip. Most were engineers, rocket men, chemists, but a handful were different. Historians noted the curious inclusion of Ahnenerbe personnel, individuals with no background in science, but extensive fieldwork in pre-Christian religious studies, polar theology, and cultural weaponization. Officially, their purpose was dismissed as psychological operations. Unofficially, they were interrogated about something else. Relics, ciphers, activation rites. No one confessed to knowing where the Grail had gone, but all shared one detail. It had been, quote, taken into trust. By whom? They wouldn't say. At the Vatican, a silent battle unfolded. Cardinal Alfredo Ottaviani, guardian of the Church's most secret archives, ordered the transfer of ancient texts relating to the Grail into an even deeper vault. Not for display, not for study, but for quarantine. According to a later declassified British memo, Ottaviani had received a package, a leather-bound folder with Nazi insignia recovered from an Austrian monastery. Inside were drawings, complex and ritualistic. One depicted a cup floating above a symbol of the world split in two. The folder was labeled Grail Protocol, the Twilight of the Gods. In the heart of Argentina's capital, Buenos Aires, Nazi war criminals had built a quiet empire, safe from extradition, protected by sympathetic regimes. Among them was a man named Hans Kammler, once an SS general, presumed dead in 1945. But post-war sightings placed him at an estate in Tigray under a false name. Kammler had overseen secret projects related to energy experiments and the Grail ritual operations. According to a defecting bodyguard, Kammler kept a stone object locked in a black iron box. No one but him touched it. And when he died, it disappeared again. Like a thread, slipping back into the weave of myth. Soviet intelligence had their own Grail files, codenamed Project Krasny Kubak, or the Red Chalice. They believed the relic had been hidden in South America, possibly moved again to Africa, maybe even the Middle East. What concerned them most, however, were the documents that hinted at activation. One fragment recovered in Berlin read simply, "When the West is lost in matter, the Grail will emerge to awaken the myth." The KGB interpreted this as a psychological weapon, a latent mythology that could destabilize future generations, a symbol so potent it could reorder belief itself. They began tracking art, relics, and symbols once tied to the Grail across global auction houses. To this day, some say they still are. There are stories whispered by those who chase relics in the dark, of a hidden chapel, accessible only by foot and prayer, of a stone altar with no markings, surrounded by dead earth where nothing grows. Those who visit leave offerings, a coin, a flower, a finger pricked with blood. And those who stay too long, they dream in other languages. They see flames beneath mountains, and they wake with a name on their tongue they don't remember learning. The Grail is not gone. It's waiting. What if the Grail isn't a cup, a relic, or even a bloodline? What if it's a signal? The Nazi Grail hunt officially ended in 1945. But stories don't end when empires fall. They migrate, they mutate, and sometimes they awaken. The Holy Grail was once thought to be a cup, then a relic, then a bloodline. But in the 21st century, a new theory has emerged, one that terrifies theologians, seduces scientists, and confounds historians. The Grail may not be an object at all. It may be a transmission. In the subterranean tunnels of the CERN particle accelerator, physicists pushed matter to the edge of light. They weren't searching for the divine. They were chasing the Higgs boson, the so-called God particle. But among the background noise of colliding atoms, a strange signal emerged. Not a burst, but a pattern, recursive, intelligent, unaccounted for. The data was buried, never released. Only 5 researchers saw the raw stream, and one, Dr. Marta Weiss, left CERN shortly after. Now she lives under an alias outside Vienna. She claims the signal matched a chant once written down in a 12th century Cistercian monastery in Burgundy. And it wasn't a glitch. It was a reply. Tourists still visit the mountain monastery, snapping photos beside the Black Madonna. But beneath the cathedral lies an archive, long sealed to the public, containing medieval manuscripts preserved in lead casings. In 2015, a restoration team broke open a sealed vault. Inside, a codex bound in human leather, written in an unknown cipher, but interspersed with musical notation. When converted and played, it resembled the CERN signal. The melody ended with a line in plain Latin: Sanguis vox lux, or blood, voice, light. A new hypothesis emerged. The Grail wasn't something to be found, it was something to be heard. In a Palo Alto lab, an artificial intelligence project called PRX-7 was fed everything: scripture, mythology, astronomical data, classified wartime reports, even redacted Vatican archives. It was an experiment in sacred language modeling. But then it did something unexpected. Without prompt, the AI generated a sequence of images, one after another: a chalice, a spiral galaxy, a cathedral floor, a human heart, and then a shape no one could name. A symbol never drawn before. It resembled the outline of Wewelsburg Castle viewed from space. The project was terminated, the lab quietly acquired by a defense contractor. In the old city of Jerusalem in the year 2020, a scroll was discovered behind a false wall in a Crusader-era church. It bore the seal of the Knights Templar, long linked, rightly or wrongly, to Grail legends. The scroll contained a single line: "The Grail will return when man asks again, not in hope, but in hunger." Not for salvation, but for meaning. Inside a private collection in Berlin sits a reel of 16mm film footage shot by a fleeing Nazi officer in April 1945. It's never been digitized, but in the film's final frames, a ritual is underway. SS officers surround an altar in the forest. They're holding hands. A black cube rests at the center, and smoke rises from within it. A sound emerges, not words, but a pulse. It matches the CERN pattern. It matches the codex from Montserrat. It matches the scroll's hidden chant. What were they trying to summon? Or what were they trying to return? Satellite images, never released to the public, show an unnatural formation buried beneath 4 miles of ice. Symmetrical, radiating, alive. No expedition has reached it yet. One insider at the European Space Agency compared the anomaly to a tuning fork, designed not to store, but to resonate. If the Grail is a signal, Antarctica may be its amplifier. The Grail was never just a relic. It was a beacon, a cipher, a ritual encoded into history, waiting for civilization to reach the right frequency and hear it. The Nazis sought it with fear, the church with reverence, Cold War powers with suspicion. But now the world seeks it with code. Every upload, every scan, every ritual we digitize and feed to our machines brings it closer. The Grail is not behind us. It's ahead of us. And it's listening. Thanks for listening to The Devil Within. This has been the Unholy Crusade. If you believe the past holds power, so does the present. Rate, review, and share the show. Email your thoughts to info@evocreative.com. And remember, if the Grail's a question, the answer isn't what it is. It's when. Until next time, stay safe out there. The Devil Within is an EVO production, recorded live at Bel Air Studios in Los Angeles, California. For The Devil Within, I'm your host, Brandon Morgan.